The value of having that real-time integration and not having the errors in all those synchronization, because if you detach it near real time of, let's say, completely disconnected, the amount of problems we are seeing IT managers are facing in synchronizing files. In B2B, if you have 5,000 products with 5,000 different customers and pricing, you end up in millions of pricing records.
Growing a business requires a holistic approach that extends beyond sales and marketing. This approach needs alignment among people, processes, and technologies. So if you're a business owner, operations, or finance leader looking to learn growth strategies from your peers and competitors, you're tuned into the right podcast. Welcome to the WBS Podcast, where scalable growth using business systems is our #1 priority. Now, here is your host, Sam Gupta.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the WBS Podcast. I'm Sam Gupta, your host and principal consultant at the independent ERP and digital transformation consulting firm Elevate IQ. B2B companies have very different needs for e-commerce than B2C. In some B2B verticals, that might be slightly service-oriented. Even the product model might not be defined. But to be successful with B2B e-commerce initiatives, having a refined product model is essential. By the way, that's not the only challenge. The bigger challenge would be the integration of e-commerce with ERP. And while you might feel that it might be plug and play, it rarely is because of the ever-changing interfaces and APIs. In today's episode, our guest, Arno Ham, discusses the importance of pre-integrated e-commerce platforms for ERP systems. He also discusses the challenges with ERP and e-commerce integration, such as the needs of e-commerce to be real-time, while the ERP systems requiring the downtime for the maintenance and upgrade. Finally, he discusses the industries that are fit for the configurator and B2B commerce business model. Let me introduce Arno to you. Arno is the Chief Product Officer of eCommerce, where they have helped over 1,500 B2B companies to become successful with e-commerce, processing an estimated $100 billion plus GMV over the years. Sana helps manufacturers, distributors, and wholesalers succeed by fostering lasting relationships with customers who depend on them and making their SAP or Microsoft Dynamics, ERP, and e-commerce work as one. With that, let's get to the conversation. Hey Arno, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Sam.
Yeah, and it's always a pleasure, especially the people who can talk about both the e-commerce as well as ERP. Not many people necessarily understand, the boundaries and the interaction. So it's always fun. Just to kick things off, do you want to start with your a little bit of story as well as what you are focusing on these days, Arno?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, what I said, my name is Arno. I'm the Chief Product Officer here at eCommerce. And at eCommerce, we are an e-commerce product, and we believe that by using ERP integration or pre-built integrations with the ERPs we are supporting, which is Microsoft Dynamics and SAP, that B2B companies are more successful than B2B companies that are, let's say, what we call using mainstream e-commerce solution, or maybe solutions that are more focused on B2C or retail. So, and just in one sentence why that is, but we will talk probably more about it today. But you do not have to replicate data and logic around all these complex things like pricing, orders, quotes, or transactions, if you may call them, inventory as well. And there is no need to maintain that data and logic in these various systems. So, one of the big things there is that it then is less prone to error by making the ERP and e-commerce work as one. So that was more or less how we invented that a couple of years ago. I will maybe we'll share that a little bit later as well, how we founded Sana. But in the end, this all results in what we call better relationships. Relationships in B2B is super important between you as a B2B company and the B2B buyers you are helping. And in the end, these improved relationships will lead to more commercial success. So yeah, that is in a nutshell. That is what we do at Sana.
Okay, very cool. So I definitely need to unpack a little bit there. I also want to understand the origination of the name. I don't know where that is coming from. But before we do that, we have one of these standard questions. I want to get that out of our way. And that is going to be your perspective on business growth.
Yes, obviously. Yeah, so my perspective on business growth is, I would say the following. I think you should be always, as a business, have the ability to move forward. We call it evolution or evolve. If you need stuff to make that happen, right? It can be tools like Sana, it can be investments, it can be going after a new opportunity or whatsoever. But we see actually a lot of companies, especially maybe now when there is maybe a little bit more economic downtime, that they are struggling with this growth, right? But there are so many opportunities to face it and to fight it and to improve it, still within the context or the boundaries or the external factors that are there, right? So, but talking or focusing it more on B2B, I would really say, it's all about now transitioning towards what we call from physical to digital, doing business. There are still so many companies that are doing business in a traditional way. If we have prospects or what we call first generation prospects or customers connecting with us, and then we hear still often that a lot of our business is still being done by email or even fax or EDI or a little bit other, let's say, old school technologies, and that transitioning the whole company towards the digital stack or the digital world is something they struggle with. But there is a huge opportunity there in terms of cost saving. We will share a couple of customer stories today. Cost saving, optimization, or further growth. So once again, to repeat a little bit myself, I think it's all about having the ability to evolve. That's also how we call it in our company. We are supplying tools that can help you further grow and further evolve. And even in these maybe now times for a little bit economic downtime, we can still help, and there are a lot of companies that are still very successful by doing the right things.
Yeah, so very interesting perspective, and thanks for sharing that. So now let's go and unpack a little bit overall in terms of your commentary. And the name of the company is very interesting. I don't know where that is coming.
Yeah.
So do you want to share a little bit of history? Okay, what is the meaning of it? Where is it coming from?
Yeah, so let me just digest a little bit on the or share a little bit the founding story or where we're coming from, right?
Yeah.
Actually, Sana originated from a company that was a digital agency, or we were focusing on e-commerce already back in the days, so even before 2007. What was happening back in the days? We are originating from Rotterdam, the Netherlands. So we are a Dutch company, but now we are a global player, obviously. But back in the days, we were really focusing on what we call here, the Dutch area, or the Benelux area, Belgium and Luxembourg as well. And we were doing a lot of retail e-commerce, let's say early retail e-commerce. So we did a lot of bookstores, fashion retailers, all that stuff we were supplying. And most of these things, it was before Magento was there. Most of these things were still bespoke or custom built, right? But we already trying to put something into a platform, and that was Sana. And it's actually, the name Sana is coming from Spectra Vision, which was the name of the company back in the days. And then something with the application network architecture. It was just some name of, let's say, an abbreviation, and it sounded nice. But for now, you can already forget it. But it was like, it was just a name that you need to have, right? Back in the days. Anyway, the key thing here is that we were already thinking, hey, we are building stuff and let's productize it so that we can reuse it for other retailers. But then what's happening, and that's also the part when I joined. So we got more and more companies coming to our organization and said, hey, we want a web store. But not for the ones where we were famous for all those things we did for Heineken Had a big beer brand, for example. We do not want these retail stores. We want, or for consumer focused store, we have also another group of customers we are serving, and these were the B2B customers. We didn't know about B2B at all. That was just business customers or something like that. So anyway, while doing that, we were taking case after case and making these customers successful. But one thing what stood out every time is that these things were different in terms of functionality. There was, they said that we have pricing, but yeah, one customer can have another price than another one. Same for inventory levels. You can maybe have your private inventory, and the other one has maybe an inventory at another location, and so on and so on. So a lot of more complexity. And this complexity, we also understood that, but we have all this information actually already registered somewhere, and that is in our ERP system. And back in the days, it was, Microsoft Navision was really kicking off. SAP was already there. So that we're talking about around 2007, so a little bit more than, or more than a decade ago. But we were making integrations over integrations every time. So or actually most of the time synchronization. So we were, pulling data from one system, files, or sometimes even web services. But it was a lot of time. It took a lot of time. It was complex, and we were making mistakes. So then we thought, hey, let's do that differently. And how we approach it then is back in the days on a pizza night, we just ordered some pizzas, and with some engineers. I have my background in IT as well, in computer science. So we were just programming a bit, trying it out, and say, hey, what if we could make that ERP system into an e-commerce engine, and forget about all the slowness, about the legacy, but just, take the challenge and make it happen. And that was actually the moment when Sana was born, because we made it happen. And from there, R&D started, and from one customer to another. And really fast forward, we started with NAV or Microsoft Dynamics, and later on we were doing other ERP systems. We were supporting it, and later on SAP as well. And now we are with 1,500 customers all over the world, and focusing on B2B. So I took a little bit more time, but I think it was a nice story to share about how the company was founded or where we originate from.
Yeah, and that actually helped me connect the dots. To be honest, I always felt that Sana had a little bit of Arabic touch. I don't know. That's what I had in my head. So I was like, I don't know where that is coming from. Maybe it has some roots.
We have a big office now in Dubai, and of course Sana. That's I think it's a Arabic word for health or something around that. So or anyway, you see a lot of Sana in the world, in most of the time with double A on the end. But no, it was just this. This abbreviation of these 4 letters that is how they generated the name, let's say so. But it just sounds nice.
It's very interesting because now I can relate, and I think that's coming from SAN is what you mentioned, right? I mean, that's very common in the network architecture. SAN is supposed to be the software. What is that? Defined network? No, that's not. That's SDN, I guess. So SAN is also part of some sort of
Old days it was technologies, I think, around storage and so on, but there's nothing to relate to that.
Exactly. Yeah. So very interesting commentary there. So let's go back to some of the comments overall from the B2B perspective, right? So when we look at B2B, there are a lot of different layers and patches, and each industry is different to be okay.
Yeah.
Even from the ERP perspective, it becomes very, very, very difficult. And people always argue that ERP community has so many different outdated systems out there, okay? And I am always trying to analyze why are customers buying these systems? What is so unique about those that they really love? I mean, customers are not going there and they are asking, okay, give me mainframe. I absolutely love those green screens. That's not what customers are asking. Okay?
No.
So in these industries, you have very unique layers. When you talk about B2B, when you go from your HVAC to your plumbing, to your automotive, to your dairy, these are all very different B2B verticals, and the functionality that they are going to require is going to be very different as well. So in your experience, I don't know, when you say B2B, do you define yourself what is B2B for you? Or is everything B2B for you?
Yeah, great question. So in general, to start about on this topic, we are really good in helping companies that have at least some complexity in their business to business.
Yeah.
If we, let's say, put it into categories,
Yeah.
we can help manufacturing companies, so companies that are building stuff, and that can be engines, or it can be spare parts, or it can be ingredients or real products, let's say so.
Yeah.
And then wholesale and distribution. So that is, they are not producing something, but they are reselling it to retailers or to other companies, etc., etc. But let's focus on the first one as well with manufacturing. Indeed, then if you have different industries that you can be in
Yeah.
manufacturing, right? It is totally different indeed if you are creating food. So let's say we have companies that are in food ingredients or creating cookies and sell these cookies through various channels, right? That can be for restaurants, that can be for supermarkets, that can be for maybe for airline companies or hotel chains, etc., etc. And the same story, and that's totally different from companies that we have that are generate or building engines for ships, for huge vessels. So these two worlds are totally different. However, most of the time, there are a couple of things that are always overlapping. Is that they are placing, the products have a price, or they have products that they sell. So the products have a price, and pricing can still be complex. They are placing transactions, right? You need to have orders, and they have customers where, or B2B buyers where they sell to. But within these, these main categories, there is of course a lot of variation. Let's say that that can be regulation, or that can be complex pricing structures, or the way how to order can be different. And I think there, the power of Sana comes into play, or at least, it was a long, let's say, journey, but we took it by the both hands and trying to solve as many of these use cases in the platform that we are supplying. So within Sana Commerce. So actually, what we are doing, these ERPs have great flexibility, and they can map all those business processes, right, for all those different industries. And besides of that, all those ERPs, if it is in the Microsoft ecosystem or the SAP ecosystem, it is already an ecosystem. So there are also a lot of add-ons on top of these, let's say, ERP engines that will give an extra or specialized angle on top of or focus, for example, that you can install add-ons for fashion or for automotive or for healthcare and so on and so on. So the great thing about that is that since we are living both in the ERP as well as having a great connection with the web, so with e-commerce, we can bring these worlds together in a very easy way instead of, let's say, rebuilding everything. So if you work, for example, in manufacturing, and you have a lot of information about your spare parts, for example, so you have machines, and machines have spare parts, and that is in your ERP. For Sana, it is very easy then to extract that information or use it directly from the ERP and show it online. And that will not only bring you quicker online, but it will also make sure that you only have to maintain, let's say, one system, more or less. Of course, you can enrich it in Sana and so on and so on. But the benefit there is that there is also so big reduction in errors that you, for example, will not make a mistake that something is online and it's not in your ERP system, or vice versa. We see IT managers struggle a lot in this area, that they get a lot of tickets from their sales department that something is wrong, or from their customers. But with the customer cases we are having, we are seeing that is really one of the benefits that is really reducing that.
Okay, so very interesting commentary there, and I especially appreciated your comment related to the products that these companies might be selling. But going back to, again, my B2B comment, a lot of B2B companies don't necessarily, especially these smaller ones. I mean, they don't even understand what a product is. For them, productizing their offering is a challenge. You go to patches such as your construction, you go to patches such as your HVAC. They might have a job. They might be doing a lot of custom manufacturing. Let's take an example of a custom manufacturing. In their case, they are getting a request. Based on that request, they are creating job, project, whatever. So they don't have a formal SKU. They don't even understand how to SQIze their offerings. They don't understand how to create those product layers. Okay, it's very, very, very difficult for them to sort of create that common data model that is going to serve as the menu card.
Yeah.
And that's rocket science, to be honest. I mean, we talk about programming technology, e-commerce, ERP, but thinking from the product perspective is very difficult for them. I don't know whether you come across those B2B.
No, of course. Let me tell you a story. I think this is really interesting, and this is also a part why still adoption, I would say, of these of digital commerce in B2B is still, let's say, running so behind, right? Less than 50% of course, everybody wants it, but if you really look at all the B2B companies, I think less than 50% is really doing good online, right? The rest is still doing a lot of offline, and with retail, it's of course totally other way around, right? Mostly is nowadays online and less in physical. But why is that? It's because it's so difficult, indeed, what you mentioned, to translate the offline world online. And for example, indeed, if you do not really can define products, or it's really difficult to translate a journey from something that you can just say, okay, I need this and that, into something that you can buy. Now, let me explain it with a customer story, and I think it will make sense, because one of our customers that we have, it's actually Dutch, or it's actually a global company, but they have also one of the offices here in the Netherlands. It's called Voorbo Flooring, and they are one of the biggest flooring providers for hospitals and schools in the world. So they have these special floors that are easy to clean, very durable, and so on and so on and so on. So years ago, they wanted to go digital because they saw the opportunity, right? So to grow further in different markets, but also to save costs and evolve, like I just mentioned, to grow your B2B business further. So what is exactly their product? Because they were selling floors, and most of the time that was just like, okay, it's a project, it's a floor for a whole hospital, right? That's not one SKU. That is just that is you can talk about days about that, right? Okay, how many square meters or food, if you say it in US, like what is the amount you need, what colors, what kind of characteristic, etc., etc. But and then it was all even interconnected. They are running SAP, but interconnected with their processes on the manufacturing processes, right? So that they can also estimate, okay, how long will it take to produce it, when can we ship it, etc. So what we did, or what we are doing with these B2B cases, is that we are working together, that we are understanding their business, say how can we put it into a SKU, or how can we put it into a product that is orderable or configurable. And once again, translate that journey, which is normally happening offline, so by phone or by visiting, that they say, okay, you can imagine that for this floor, you can just say, okay, what kind of floor do you want, right? For what is the purpose? You do a lot of selection, and with all those steps, which are normally being done in the physical world, is now translated into digital in our platform. So how many square meters, how many, what type of floor, what characteristics. And then if we have all the data, we are, because of our integration with SAP, we can directly calculate what it will cost, and also how when it can be delivered, because that's important for these big projects, right? If you need to replace a floor in a hospital, you need to know when it's happened, because you need to plan that, right? Hospital needs to be empty, etc. It's really difficult. So then we can also give that exact with all those integration that we have with SAP, all that logic which is there already, what the customer has built over the years, how to estimate that, etc. We are triggering that, and in a couple of seconds we have the calculation done, and we can give that, and then no need to call for these customers that are most of the time these are contractors that are doing these jobs for hospitals or companies that need new floors. So no need to do a lot of calling or emailing. They can just do that any moment of the day online. And that is the big difference. And they are growing really well. They open store after store for different regions. And lived happily ever after, right? So they made the transition, but there are still so many companies that are not doing that. And I think the key is there to first of all, understand that this journey or this transition will take time. It's not like, okay, I'm buying an e-commerce product. Doesn't matter if it's Sana or Magento or whatsoever, any e-commerce product, and then, oh yeah, we can just transform our business. Now it's pretty difficult, right? And then it's nice if you have a tool or a company like Sana that is really specialized and focused in B2B, so that we can help you with exactly these challenges about how to define SKUs or how to define an online buying journey for this B2B buyers for your particular case.
Yeah, so very interesting story there. And I am going to add one story from my perspective, and then
sure.
maybe we are going to, build a little bit on that in terms of where are the boundaries of the configurators, to be honest. Okay. So I don't know how complex estimations and the configurations you have done in the e-commerce space, but in my mind, there comes a point where the estimation and the configurators become so complex that they probably cannot be modeled as part of your data model. It becomes very challenging. Okay. And in this particular case, I mean, even if I'm modeling based on one of the PIMS or maybe Magento or any other commerce platforms, I mean, they are probably going to have the product, maybe product category. They are going to have maybe attribute, maybe the parent attribute. So those 4 layers. I don't know if any other platforms support more than that. But when you look at the journey of the configurator, for example, if you look at the real configurator, the layers are really deep in that. And the data model needs to support the configuration layers. Otherwise, it becomes very challenging to be incorporated as part of your data model, right? So in this particular case, let's say if you are doing floor, I don't know how complex it gets in the floor space. So the whole configurator journey is going to be, hey, I have a floor, but in that floor, I could have a wooden floor. I could have 5 different types of material. Once you select the material, then you are going to have 4 different conditions. Maybe you are doing a small tile or whatever, and then maybe large. And if you select the small, then you cannot have the large. So there are a bunch of exclusion condition. So this becomes, let's say, the 5 or 6 dimension. Now, let's say if you are incorporating this as part of your programming logic, where you have a bunch of drop down, easy, right? Correct. But if you are incorporating that as part of your data model, typically with the configurator, because the reason why it needs to be part of the data model is because for the configurator, the output is always going to be some sort of bar, right? In the background, you have these rules that are firing, and based on that, you are producing a recipe that number 1, you need to sell, number 2, you need to produce. Okay, if you are assembling, you might. So I don't know if you have run into similar challenges where there comes a point where you cannot accommodate these number of dimensions in the configurator.
No, sure, definitely. And honestly speaking, I think it can be there rather quick. Indeed, what you said with flooring, it was still relatively easy, although the backend processes are really complex, and that's why it's so good that we integrate with them. So, for example, with the estimation of the production and so on. But indeed, what you said, selecting is maybe 5 to 10 choices, right, depending on each other. That's still rather easy or overseeable. However, we also come across, let's say, much more complex configurators or configuration options. And what we then actually do are, we are, let's say, what we call best of breed solutions. So we also know where we need to start and where we need to stop. We really believe in that composability, or that you can compose your own B2B e-commerce experience. So what you can do is with Sana is we also work with companies that are very specialized in extreme, let's say, configure price quote, optimized for B2B constructions, even very visual. So we work with different companies that are different vendors that are supplying that, and that can range from and especially, for example, configuring an engine for a ship is for example like a multi-step, let's say maybe hundreds of choices to do, and then these tools come in to make it overseeable. And they are optimized for these data models. So what we are doing is that we are embedding these things in these CPQ engines inside Sana, and also with the ERP, and that based on this triangle of applications, we make sure that the product is being configured, but directly can be checked out with Sana and is being indeed generated as a BOM or even as a production order inside SAP or Dynamics, with all the calculation rules, etc., etc. So once again, it's still the foundation is there, no errors, everything real time. But just by doing the hard work and making sure these applications integrate with each other perfectly.
Yeah, so very interesting commentary there. So I'm going to touch a little bit more on the real-time comment, and that's always my sort of favorite topic, okay? And the reason why it is favorite topic, to be honest, is because when you look at the ERP upgrade cycle, the way ERP systems work, the thicker the data model, the longer it is going to take for a product to update. Now, people can talk about ERPs are complex, they are complicated, and that's why they are slow, but at the end of the day, I mean, their data model is very complex, and that's why they take so long for the upgrade cycle. Now, when you talk about the real-time connection, okay, believe it or not, in 2023, ERP systems go down, even the cloud ones. Okay, so they are going to have, and I don't know if Microsoft goes down to, but a lot of cloud ERP systems have downtime. Even Salesforce has, to be honest.
Correct.
Okay, they'll always announce that maintenance window and then it's done. eCommerce cannot go down. We all know this. If your site goes down, Google is not going to be happy. Okay. So I don't know, when you talk about real time, do you typically recommend near real time? Because the real time connection is probably not going to be good when you are going to have, because if your ERP system is going to go down, then your product is going to go down, then your pricing is going to go down, then your SEO is going to go down, then your reputation is going to go down, then your domain authority. Oh my goodness. So e-commerce is a very different beast, right? So maybe touch a little bit more on the real-time commentary.
No, of course. And I can talk about this for days, but because this is a very interesting topic. So for one thing I can agree, of course, ERPs go down as well. But looking at, we are really, on top of this data and metrics, because from all our 1,500 customers, one thing we do for sure, since we are so integrated, we also measure exactly the uptime of the ERP. And in most cases, we let most of the time the customer know that their ERP is down, and then they also value that extra service we are doing, because we are dependent of that. However, having said that, we have, of course, also various ways on how to deal with when the ERP is down. So, but let me start with is in the essence, I think the value of being real time and everything, real time and everything what it will bring to the B2B customers we are serving is much more worth than, let's say, and that's based on the data, that 1 hour per month, roughly, that it was really, let's say, down inside these business hour, so that you miss 1 hour window, let's say so. However, if that is still critical, then with Sana we have many different ways on how to deal with that. We have things that you can move a little bit for temporary time to near real time. So you can say, okay, you can still browse the catalog, you can still see prices, but they maybe are not your real time calculated prices, but more like let's say a pricing list that was indexed or something like that. And then we also have mechanisms, and I think we are unique there in terms of other vendors, that you can place the order, and maybe if half an hour later the ERP goes back online, we recalculate the order, we make still sure that it is placed in the ERP, and if there are any differences, we will let the customer and the B2B buyer know, and we have functionality to solve that, right? So that is, I think, one thing. But let me once rephrase it again. We see really in the data, one, that ERPs, they go down, but when it's really out of business hours, because in B2B you have to be, it's a big difference with B2C. With B2B, business hours is really, I would say, more important. Outside of business hours is happening less. And with B2C, everybody's shopping in the evening, right? Or and so on. But with business hours on B2B, that is a little bit different story. But it needs to function there. Downtime ERP in these business hours, that's really, really low numbers if we really look at the metrics we are having from our customer base. So, but it's happening, and we can mitigate that. But once again, the value of having that real-time integration and not having the errors in all those synchronization, because if you detach it, near real time of, let's say, completely disconnected, the amount of problems we are seeing IT managers are facing in synchronizing files. In B2B, if you have 5,000 products with 5,000 different customers and pricing, you end up in millions of pricing records, right? If you want to synchronize that is a task that seems like so easy, but there can always go something wrong in file import or API that is offline. And then what happens is that price on the store is different than in the ERP, and the customer is going to call, So that is what we are avoiding, and we believe, and we are giving that also to our customers, and we are seeing that at our customers, that you can take that offline part as for granted, let's say so, that 1 hour per month, maybe even that is more than we have in our numbers. Maybe it's a good idea to have a LinkedIn post of it. You inspired me. I can maybe share a little bit these statistics later on. But anyway, it's more worth to have that real time. We see that every day.
Yeah, so very
it's a totally different approach. A totally different approach.
Yeah, and just to make sure that listeners are going to be able to follow along. So in terms of the approach that you are suggesting and maybe you are doing right now is in B2B, there are going to be many layers, right? B2C is very different, obviously, because of the architecture that they are going to have for their web. In B2B, you are going to have the logged in area, which is probably the major area in general for B2B. I don't know, non-logged in area is also going to be there. I don't know if they are
more and more. Yes.
More and more non-logged in. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So we have, of course, in the past, let's say every B2B store was closed.
Yeah.
The first page was this big login page.
Yeah.
But nowadays, I think even more. I'm pretty sure more than 50% what we see in our data is open, what we call open store. So at least you need to be out there, right? You need to know, give to the world what you're selling. Because as well, most of the time, I think we had another podcast a couple of weeks ago with Kurt. That was also nice. That was about this, this hidden gem, or you hide your business, right? In B2B, it's happening a lot. But it's better to open up, because then people can find you, and that is happening more and more.
Okay, so very interesting. So the open area, in open area, probably you are not going to have price. So price does not need to be synchronized in real time, I guess, but the product needs to be there. So that needs to be at least real time. And if the ERP system goes down, your catalog at least is going to be up. Now, touching back on the comment that you mentioned related to reconciliation, okay? Yes. And that's a nightmare, okay? And in my mind, that's still a rocket science, and that is always going to be rocket. Reconciliation, reconciling two different databases is always very hard, and that is the problem that you were trying to highlight, that it sounds easy, but you have no idea how difficult that gets, right? So in the case of B2B, especially when you talk about reconciling the transaction depth, okay, when you are going to have products that are going to have lot numbers, the serial numbers, 4 different lot numbers associated with the product, okay, it gets very, very, very involved and complex. So in your experience, when you look at any of the B2B patches, do you see any issues in any specific B2B patches where, let's say, if they might require the recallability, okay, of the product, when they are going to have that, when you are going to have 2 different databases, sometimes that could be very hard, because number one, you need to reconcile these 2 databases, and, setting up this journey could be very difficult. And that could be the reason why some of the businesses, to be honest, okay, they struggle with e-commerce. They cannot visualize in their head how this whole manufacturing, the production process are going to work. E-commerce is great, but the problems sometimes that is going to cause may not be worth it. So I don't know. I mean, see, if you sort of draw the boundary in some of the B2B verticals where the process is going to be so complex, if they are going to have any sort of traceability, track and trace, serializability, do you see any issues there, or do you recommend e-commerce for any B2B organization?
So it depends, always like that, right? I think in the end, at least looking at the data, any business at some point in time will be completely digital. I think that is just inevitable. It will happen. But it takes time to solve the complex things that you just mentioned, to solve that with technology. We do not know what AI, for example, will bring in the future that can maybe solve one part of it. But what I know for sure is that every time the past years we added functionality or we invented something so that we could onboard more customers than we did before, right? However, there is always a way to start, and that's what I wanted to point out. Even if your business is so complex, or your main product or your main service is so complex, the need and also the possibility to do B2B e-commerce still is always there. We have seen that with a lot of customers. To give you an example, we have customers, we have customers in they are selling really difficult machinery, and that is still not possible, even with this CPQ that we just touched upon, to do digital. However, these machines is this one-time purchase, but the spare parts and these other running goods that you need to have, maybe you need some ingredients every time to put some oils or something, these disposables, these things to keep the machines running, or fuel. That is a recurring order. And most of the time, these consumables are easier products. Still, there is complexity around there for B2B because you need to know, okay, this customer has these machines at his factory, and these are connected to these serial numbers, and these serial numbers have these spare parts, and then you just only can order these. But still, we have so many customers doing successful and a lot of online revenue by first taking that challenge, right? So then they already improving their organization. They are reducing cost. For example, these salespeople can focus on selling more these complex machines and do not have to worry about the spare parts and the rest of the consumables. So there is always a way to start, right? And for some cases we can do everything, right? So and translate and transfer everything. But it's always good to be advised and to know that there are different opportunities in different ways to still do a lot of B2B online commerce, even though your process or your product is very, very complex and maybe not possible to digitalize yet.
Yeah, so very interesting. And I want to touch on one more point because your approach is very different overall, from the e-commerce perspective, because you guys obviously have far deeper background in general with the ERP as well. The average e-commerce shop is probably not going to have as much, ERP. They don't even understand, why ERP layers need to be so complex. The data model needs to be so complex to us. Okay. But when I look at, and this is not just the e-commerce integration, any integration. Okay. When you talk about CRM to ERP integration, CPQ to ERP integration, e-commerce to ERP integration, what happens is, e-commerce is always going to have the flattened data architecture, because if you are going to replicate as your ERP has, then obviously the data model is going to be extremely bloated. That's probably going to be extremely hard for sales and marketing to use because they don't have as deep accounting background or as deep, supply chain operations background, right? So that's why you are trying to simplify the data architecture from the e-commerce perspective, from CRM perspective, as well as from. But when you try to integrate, and when you are going to flatten the architecture, I'll give you an example. For example, let's say in the ERP, you are going to have a customer is going to have one bill to, maybe multiple bill to, then you are going to have 5,000 different ship tos. Okay. In your, CRM, e-commerce, you have a customer, maybe you have just one ship to, or maybe two ship tos, or maybe just a field call address. So you have flattened this to make it easy, for your sales and marketing. But then you are going to lose the traceability. There is another example. Okay. Sometimes I have seen cases where, e-commerce is easy. I am going to be looking at my warranty inside my invoice. The ERP perspective, that's sort of an anti-pattern. And the reason for that is because invoice has a very different workflow than your warranty as well as your serial number. So we see these scenarios and they sort of become the process bottleneck in my mind. Because if your data is not going to be mapped one-to-one, it's very hard to, number one, scale. Number two, you sort of love the traceability. I don't know if you have seen something similar. You guys take different approach. So you have any commentary there based on my comments?
No, I love the question. This is not being asked to me a lot, but I think this is a really important point because We do this differently, and this is what we call pre-built integrations. That is, let's say, every vendor has APIs, right? It just makes sure that things are flexible, but that is just one of the ingredients of a starting point. I think we are doing 100 or 1,000,000 steps more, and to make really the magic happen. And let me explain. And that's also the reason why we are only supporting the Microsoft and SAP ecosystems, because it is a long journey, right? Supporting a new ERP ecosystem for us is maybe a year of investment, maybe multi-million investment. We have also what you mentioned in when you're starting this question. We have a lot of teams specialized also in the ERP and also in the B2B business. So we really understand these systems as well. And to digest or to answer your topic about flattening or easing the things to make it happen, that is actually what we see a lot at these mainstream e-commerce platforms, because it needs to happen, otherwise it doesn't work, right? And that's also the power of them. Let's take Shopify. They are really easy to implement because they flatten everything. And but a counter side is there that you cannot handle these complex B2B cases. We do it differently. What we take with this pre-built integration approach and having the half of our R&D inside the ERP, there is no need to bring that data from one to another, right? So we are using it there. So talking about the shipping address example, you can have 1,000,000 addresses or what, because we are querying that real time and sometimes near real time, but we are taking that. And if you have maybe 20 address fields or 10, or if you have 5, or you have a hierarchy, it doesn't matter for us, because we are taking what is there in the ERP. And that is a total different approach than that you are trying to map your data model, which is often simplified, with the very complex world from the ERP, So that is one. And that is what we call pre-built integrations. And we take 1,000,000 steps more there, right? So we have these people, first of all. Second, we live for half of our source code and IP is in the ERP system on their stack, let's say, so their programming language. So we are really inside there. Why? Because we want to make there the magic happen. It needs to be fast for e-commerce. The APIs out of the box for SAP and Microsoft are not always that scalable or that fast to handle e-commerce purposes. We are making sure that indeed not the mapping, but let's say the discovery on the metadata and actually feeling how the ERP of the customer is, we can just look at it digitally, say, okay, customer looks like this, product looks like this, and we are taking that. So that is what we call pre-built. We are really inside there. And it's not just about, okay, we're having APIs and we have one guy that can just connect a little bit these APIs and we have an integrated solution. That is how other vendors are doing. No, every time we are busy, every day our teams are busy with understanding the ERP, understanding the cloud releases, what's coming new. We are seeing already weeks or months in advance if Microsoft is changing something, because we are in daily contact with their teams, in their product development team. So we know also that although APIs needs to be stable and needs to be contracts, the reality is that they still can change, or the logic behind it can change. We will recognize that, we will see that, and that is all what we call these extra steps, the extra 1,000,000 steps we are taking, and that's pre-built integration. Now the benefit for a customer is that they do not have to do it, or the partner or the developer do not have to do that. We are taking care of that. And to finalize the story, I think you're still not there, because if you take things which are really complex from an ERP system, like you mentioned, these 50 addresses or some complex thing with warranty, then it's still important that you can simplify it or make the customer journey suitable for people that are able to order, right? And there is also where what we believe the power of the Sana platform, and we are really embracing what we call low-code, no-code, is that you can configure and click and combine things in Sana to make so these complex things look simple on the front end. And to talk about that case with the warranty, indeed, in ERPs, warranties and invoices can be 1,000,000 miles from each other, right? It can be in one part of the system and in another part of the system, and they do not talk to each other. But with Sana, we can bring that in my account together. We can map the numbers, for example, and we can say, hey, this is connected to each other. And doing so, you can give a user experience that makes sense.
Yeah, amazing. So that's it for today. Do you have any last minute closing thoughts or advice for our listeners by any chance?
Yeah, no, of course we can talk for ages. Oh, time's flying already. We talked
Yeah, I
already
know,
for an
right?
hour. Wow.
Exactly.
Then it was no cool. Yeah, nice topics. So the biggest advice I want to give is that if you're struggling, let's say so, with this question about, hey, I don't think we can move our physical online selling process to the digital world. I would like to challenge you and talk with us, especially if you're Microsoft or SAP. I'm pretty sure we can do and bring your business online for a big part. So that is one advice. And second, if you are already running a B2B e-commerce store on SAP or on Microsoft Dynamics and you have troubles in your adoption rates, for example, then I'm pretty sure, because we have done our investigation and we have data around it and reports and documentation around it, that there is something wrong, for example, in the functionality and in the real-timeness of your data and logic around pricing, stock, or inventory, or transactions. And that's why that's one of the main reasons why B2B buyers are not embracing your new B2B digital platform or portal, right, or e-commerce store. So and then we are there to help. And otherwise, if you just want to talk about B2B, also give me let's say direct message on LinkedIn or something. We can plan something in, because we have a nice podcast as well, B2B e-commerce integrated. And we love to talk like you, Sam. We love to talk about B2B e-commerce. So thanks Sam.
Okay, amazing. And the more we talk about the B2B commerce, the easier it is going to get for the customers. And my personal takeaway from this conversation is going to be that focus on the design as well as the architecture and data model. I guess that's where the real truth is. Thinking about the commerce journey or the ERP journey. On that note, I really want to thank you for your time. This has been a powerful episode, Arno.
Thank you, Sam. Have a nice day.
You too. I cannot thank our guests enough for coming on the show, for sharing their knowledge and journey. I always pick up learnings from our guests, and hopefully you learned something new today. If you would like to learn more about Arno, head over to sana-commerce.com. It's sana-commerce.com, and subscribe to the B2B e-commerce integrated podcast to learn more about how the IT leaders' perspective on B2B e-commerce and the important role of ERP integration. Links and more information will also be available in the show notes. Also, don't forget to subscribe and spread the word among folks with similar backgrounds. If you have any questions or comments about the show, please review and rate us on your favorite podcasting platform or DM me on any social channels. I'll try my best to respond personally and make sure you get help. Thank you, and I hope to catch you on the next episode of the WBS Podcast.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the WBS Podcast. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. For more information on growth strategies for SMBs using ERP and digital transformation, check out our community at WBS.rocks. We'll see you next time.